Hey, Deserving listeners, Netflix released some follow-up episodes to season 2 of Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Dude, isn't that crazy? Is that comforting to you?
Yes.
Can I be honest?
What?
Can I be honest?
It scares the shit out of me.
It doesn't scare me. It's just...
Okay, so Ayana and Jared are having a sit-down during a party. I think they've both been drinking, so that could be a risk. It's something to think about seriously when you have been drinking or when you're intoxicated on really anything. To sit down and have a serious conversation, there are risks. Sometimes it can enhance it, but usually it's not worth the risk. But anyway, so they're sitting down and he's saying he has enjoyed being married to her for the past year, and she's like, can I be honest? I don't know if the past year's been that great. And they make jokes about it. So there's a line, right? If you're always joking, you're actually avoiding everything. It can be hurtful. But they are trying to lighten the mood as they talk about it more seriously, as they are authentic with each other. These kinds of jokes these kinds of little quips and laughs can actually help. And I think it is helping because they both seem to be doing it, 1, and 2, they don't seem to be hurt by it, and 3, it seems to be helping them to open up and feel connected. Because when you're talking about something that's really tense like this, and if you just purely, intensely talk about all the negativity, it can be really heavy. It can be kind of scary, and they're holding each other. And so there's a lot of really positive things about the way that they communicate. And I'm reminded of a lot of the things about their relationship that indicated a lot of strengths. However, they are essentially separated right now, only, within the first year of their marriage, which, doesn't bode well. But, the things that they're talking about as the major issues are his drinking and what they refer to as him growing up. And I'll tell you, I've worked on much harder relationships, much harder conflicts than that, and found success. So there's nothing that I'm seeing here that's just like, oh, they're doomed.
It's like, that's not very comforting for me.
Why?
I mean, because we've been having the same conversation repeatedly for months.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's being honest. She's saying, it's not very comforting to me that you think everything's fine, because everything isn't fine. It's like you think everything's fine, but everything isn't fine. It's not very comforting. It's sort of disheartening to me that you wouldn't at least recognize the difficulties that we've been through.
I mean, I think at this point how frustrated I am for me to move out.
Yeah. They're fucking growing pains.
Growing pains, baby?
Let me finish.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'm reminded of some of her issues, or at least some indications of her issues of trust, and I think, if I remember right, some attachment insecurity distortions. I don't remember specifically, but I will add that to the mix as a possibility. Most of us have some attachment injury issues, if not all of us have attachment injury issues, and they will manifest, particularly when things aren't going well. But anyway, a couple of things to notice. He's making a joke, a little laugh there, because he started to say things like, these are growing pains, which agrees with the way she was framing it, but then she immediately interrupts that, says, really, growing pains? Because I think she's saying it's more serious than that. This is a much bigger issue than just growing. It makes it sound like it's a small thing. It wasn't a small thing to me. And then he says, can I finish? And then he says, and then she agrees, and then he says, yeah. So again, it's these little things, because there's lots of ways of saying that. It's like, can I finish? And then she's quiet, and thank you. There's a lot of different ways to communicate in these moments, and it's incredibly important that when you're in a relationship and you have these kinds of tense conversations, that you pay very close attention to those little things, right? There's a lot to pay attention to. And of course, couple therapy can really help with this, but there's so many little nuances of communication, little things that you can do. His arm is around her. Her leg is on him. He says, can I finish? He doesn't go, can I finish? He's like, can I finish? We'll rewind that. And then she allows him, she wants to continue. Okay, I'll let him finish. And then he makes a little laugh to lighten the mood, I think, although it could be argued that he's laughing as a way of ridiculing her, like a way of rolling your eyes. It didn't look that way, but let's rewind that.
I mean, I think you know at this point how frustrated I am for me to like move out.
Yeah. They're fucking growing pains.
Growing
Itching.
pains, baby?
Let me finish.
Sorry.
Oh, and then I missed that she actually apologized right away. So just so many good things about this. Like, if I saw this on my couch, I would immediately point out all the positives. I'd be like, you guys are really doing some good stuff. It can take me years to get a couple to do what you're doing. There's so many good things that I see here. And because it's true, I can work with a couple with a lot more distancing behaviors, a lot more contempt towards each other, a lot less warmth, a lot less diplomatic giggling and apologizing. I mean, I'll work with a couple for 7 years before one of the partners even apologizes for anything, let alone this sort of thing. These people aren't jerk faces. They just have so many relational traumas and bad examples that it's hard for them to do these things. So they clearly have probably families where there was some level of good communication and warmth and trust. You really have to trust someone in a tense conversation like this to have your arm around them. Because for some people in a situation like this, it's so tense and there's so much insecurity and so much pain and anger and distress that to touch the person, it's intolerable. So the fact that they're able to do that shows that they are able to, shows that they're open, shows that they're not under that much of stress. And as kind of a tragedy is the more distressed you are, the less likely you're going to want to touch them, which causes the individuals to be less able to soothe themselves and other people. Because when you're under a lot of stress, physiologically, we know this, is that when you can actually touch someone and have physical affection, then your distress will go down in all likelihood. Blood pressure goes down, all sorts of things. So for people that, have a lot of distress, it's really important to learn emotional regulation and awareness and have at least other ways to reduce it so that it doesn't run away with you, right? Because the more tense you are, the more reactive you are, and the more angry you are, and the more accusatory you are, and the more quicker you are to explode and to stonewall and to run away. And it can really be a cascade of issues, you know what I mean? Like the distress begets distress, and the ability to regulate begets the ability to regulate each other's emotions and calm each other down.
Recognize the damage that I've done, and I'm doing everything that I need to do.
When you say everything, what are you doing?
Well,
Like, what's the plan? Because at this point,
Okay, so he's saying, I recognize the damage I've done, so that's great. He can admit fault. He can empathize, so I'm sure she appreciates that. He's not blaming her or anything, right? And then he says, I'm doing everything I need to do. And then she says, what are you doing exactly? So let's see what he says.
I've been telling you what I've needed for a really long time, and you'd be like, okay. And then go on doing your own thing anyway. So at this point, like, I'm asking you, like, what's the plan?
all right, so I got the 60-day plan. I got a
Wait,
30.
do you really?
So maybe he does, but this is good for her because it's especially if you had that chronic experience where you have a partner that's just like, okay, I'm going to change. I'm totally going to change. And I often will comment on these shows that's often what people will say. It's like, I'll never do it again. And then that's all that we hear about. And if that's all that they do, that's almost impossible to achieve. They're almost guaranteed to fail. Any kind of problem that you have, any kind of harm you bestowed on your partner, if you don't have a robust system of addressing the factors that led up to that, those factors remain and will happen again, and thus the harm will happen again. People just think like, well, I'll just remember next time. I'll just know to not harm you in that way. And it's based on this idea that somehow so you decided to harm your partner in the past, like you came to a Y in the road and you said, you know what, I'm going to harm my partner, so next time I'll choose the other road and I won't harm the partner. No, that's not how these things work. What happens is you have an escalation of emotion and interpretation, and maybe relational trauma is being triggered, and rumination and ideas and attachment insecurity patterns and old tapes, and it cascades. Sometimes this is a pattern that can be building for months, but it could even just be in the span of 5 minutes, and then you act and it feels congruent, it feels justified, it feels righteous, it feels moral, it feels like the right thing to do based on the state that you whipped yourself into or that your traumas whipped you into. And to just say the next time I'm not going to do it ignores all those factors that led up to what felt like a very viable response to a situation, right? So it's good that she's like, so what's the plan? Because you keep saying you're not going to do it, but then you keep doing it. So what's the plan? And if I were there, just me passively listening, well, I guess I'm still passively listening right now, so I'll just say for me right now, if he said something like, well, I'm going to go to AA, or I told my friends who drink I'm no longer going to drink with them, and we're going to take a break from each other for the next few months, something along those lines. It would have to be something pretty severe, because if he's tried to not do this, and he's promised and probably intended to not do it, and then kept doing it, a very robust plan and system has to be put into place so that he doesn't fall into the same traps. Because I'm guessing for him, this is total speculation, but a typical profile would be he drinks too much, stays out too late, and then comes home, and while he's drinking, he's just like, it's fine. I'm with my friends. What's the big deal? She'll be okay. And then the next day, she's really, really hurt, and sober-minded, he's like, I did it again. My friends convinced me. I started getting the mindset, and things blossom out of control. And what did I do? It's just so bad, especially if it's like the 15th time. And you're like, okay, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do it again. And the solution, so then often what will happen is maybe for 5 days, 3 days, 8 days, he's able to hold it together, just like, okay, I'm not going to get with my friends. I'm not going to do that. Meanwhile, his friends don't know the situation, so they're texting him, how come you're not coming out? And you're too embarrassed to say anything, so you're just like, oh, I'm busy, or, the wife is keeping me home, or whatever you say. You're avoiding telling your friends, by the way, I have a problem with alcohol, or there's something wrong in my life. I'm really trying to turn a new leaf, or something like that. Even if you say that, some friends, some drinking buddies might actually be threatened by that because it makes them question themselves. They might double down on pressuring you. Anyway, and then you have a stressful day at work. Maybe you even get into a fight with your partner because you're not used to dealing with things, from a sober way, or it's just normal to have fights with your partner sometimes. And then you're very distressed and you're not used to dealing with your emotions. And then you're just like, F it, I'm going to go drink with my buddies because I got to get out of the house. Look, it's not about the drinking. I just got to get out of the house. She's annoying me and I deserve this. And it's been a stressful week and she never understands and she never listens to me. So I'm just going to have one drink with my friends and I'm just going to relax. I just need this. And then they go out. One drink leads to 15 drinks and the whole thing starts all over again. And so I don't know. But unless he has some plan that demonstrates that he is accounting for all of the factors that lead up to him repeatedly doing something that I think he plans not to do, then Ayanna should not necessarily have the confidence that things are going to change. But let's hear what he says.
And then go on doing your own thing anyway. So at this point, I'm asking you, what's the plan?
All right, so I got the 60-day plan. I got a
Wait, do you really?
30, 60, 90-day plan.
Wait, I was like, wait, do you for real? Because that sounds like something I would do. And I'm like, that does not sound like...
Okay, well, maybe he'll follow it up with some other robust approach to his problem. And I don't even know if he has a problem. Maybe if he were being honest, he'd be like, look, I don't have a problem with alcohol. She's a controlling person. She gets out of control. I drink with my friends once a month, once every couple months, and she's just too controlling. Yeah, who knows what he would say. But if we go off her description and he is making light of making a plan, it's not very encouraging. But maybe he'll say, look, I don't have a plan, but I do have an approach. I have a whole new way of dealing with this, or, I'm going to go to therapy or something. Let's hear what he says.
Strict households, and he's the most social person I've ever met in my entire life. And all of a sudden he's married. So I think if I can just see any form of insight and understanding, I think that would, that would even be a small step forward.
again, I have no idea what's really happening. There's another possibility that it's just, and by growing pains, he might actually mean it's growing pains for the two of us. Who knows? But the way she framed it right there is that he's very extroverted and maybe she isn't. And thus her idea of a perfect relationship is that they spend, 29 days out of 30 together at home alone without socializing. That's her perfect balance. And for him, he wants to socialize every day, but limits himself to a couple times a week or something like that. And they are both hurting each other by not conforming to the other person's vibe or something. And it doesn't have anything to do with alcohol. It has to do with him wanting to socialize more. Now, certainly there's a way to work together on that, but so I'll just add that to the list, it's because the way they're talking, it could be that as well.
I'm pretty sure I'm about to quit bartending. So the next step is to quit the security job, because that also is a catalyst for why I'd be going out too, because I'm working in the club.
Okay, so those are real plans. He was making a joke about a 30-day plan, but those are plans. He plans on quitting certain jobs, 2 of his jobs, because they lead to more frequent, maybe more often drinking or something. He's also cutting back on drinking. Okay, so these are good plans. If he has an actual alcohol issue, unless he has a more robust plan than that, I wouldn't have a lot of optimism. But if he doesn't have an addiction, if he doesn't have a problem with use, if it's just sort of like lifestyle circumstance, then this could work.
Out on the scene, and I get off at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
You're like, I want to go out.
Yeah.
Bro, you just be so irresponsible sometimes. It's like I love you as a person, but sometimes like I don't see the value of having you as a partner.
Well, that indicates that Ayanna has gone down quite a road. Maybe she was quick to say something like that, but usually when I hear this sort of thing, it means that there's been a long period of time of frustration and a lack of action or indications of incompatibility or something. She's phrasing things like maybe in her mind she's already broken up with him, as evidenced by the fact that she moved out. That's a pretty big mood for people. She's like, I love you as a person, meaning I don't love you as a partner. And if I open my heart up to you, you're going to hurt me. So I'm basically done doing that, is kind of what she's saying, which, is sad.
And want you to be there in it, fighting with me together. I understand that you're exhausted. I understand it.
Sometimes I think like, is this a mistake that we made that needs to be corrected, or is it something that should be fought for?
Yeah, it would be natural to think that. She's basically framing it like, did we make a mistake by getting married? By getting married without dating for a long time and getting to know each other and making sure that we're compatible? Or is our issue worth fighting for? Going to therapy, working on things. Might we actually, if we work on it for a few years, actually emerging on the other side with a really strong relationship? I don't know. And this is something that people ask me all the time, whether it's podcast listeners, YouTube watchers, clients, friends. And there's no way to know that question. We can explore it, and I will with people if that's my role. I'll explore it, knowing that I'll never know the answer to that question, and could never know the answer to that question. I learned early in my career that I have no gauge. I have a gauge for myself when it comes to relationships as to whether or not they're worth fighting for or not. But, with my relationships, but I have no ability to apply that gauge to other people's lives, particularly because I'm only hearing from them what their experience is. I don't know precisely what their experience. I haven't lived in their shoes. So there's no way for me to know that as a professional. And a little advice for everyone, that if you ever find yourself telling a friend that they should break up or that they should fight for a relationship, like, you just don't know. There's no way to know. You can be there to support them and explore. So that's what I do, is I explore. It's like, okay, well, I hear you saying this, and that's promising, but I also hear you saying this, and that kind of says maybe it's not worth it, but I also hear this, and I hear that, and here's what I would do, but I don't know what you would do. Always just allowing space for discussion and for the individual to mull it over. And I've been in situations with couples in this situation for months, if not years, where they enter in this state where it's like, we don't know if this is worth fighting for. I want to fight for it, but also I'm pretty demoralized, and I think that we might actually just be inherently incompatible. And they stay in this state, sort of vacillating from one side to the other. It's like they're sitting on the fence and sort of leaning one way one week and leaning the other way another week. And they might do that for a really long time. They might only do that for a week, but usually people, given the stakes, they will let it breathe for a while. And I think that for some people, they're waiting for this like sign from God or something, this sort of definitive situation where they're like, okay, I definitely know one way or the other. And sometimes that never happens. Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith, one direction or another, The other possibility that I'll throw out there is that Jarrett, for whatever reason, at some point decided he didn't really want to be in the relationship or didn't want to fight for it. And as she started to complain, he's like, okay, maybe she's right, maybe she's wrong. And then when push came to shove and he had to actually go home instead of go out, he's just like, you know what, I don't really care about this relationship that much. And so, I don't know, if I just need to do this. I want to hang out with my friends, and if this means that Ayanna leaves me, that'll hurt me, and that'll be pretty devastating. But honestly, a while ago, given the way our relationship is, I don't know if I care that much. And so he might be passively or even unconsciously acting in a way that will provoke her to break up with him because he doesn't have the ability or doesn't want to face what his feelings are. I don't know. There's no indication of that, but it could be a possibility. So this whole series, so they're at the end of the third episode, and the entire series was about Jarrett and Ayanna getting back together and, working on their relationship. They went to Jarrett's family and Ayanna's family, and also Nick and Danielle seem to be doing pretty well together, actually. And at the very end, they say that Jarrett and Ayanna and Nick and Danielle have decided to divorce. While their journeys together have ended, love is always worth the risk. We're grateful to the Pod Squad for opening their hearts and sharing their stories with the world. Wow, that's sad. I mean, they seem to be doing really well, and of course, it's always hard to tell. And now, I think Nick and Danielle went to therapy, so that would mean that at least they gave it a shot. Did Jarrett and Ayanna go to a therapy? I don't know. So a lot happened, and there wasn't much for me to comment on. There were little bits. They had a big party, an 80s party. Natalie has a problem with Shayna. Shayna showed up at the party. There was this tension, and then Shayna left because she didn't want to cause drama, which I thought was a good call. Then later, Shayna and Shane met up, and they seemed to be friends, and both of them were claiming that Natalie was making the whole thing up, that in fact Shane and Shayna weren't actually flirting over DMs or something, and that Shane is saying, well, Natalie's all about drama, and she's all about making it about herself, and she's jealous, and all these accusations. So I don't know what to think. It's hard to know what to think. We don't have enough information. Natalie could be lying, Shane could be lying, Shayna could be lying, they all could be lying. I don't know. It was just hard to tell because they didn't really go into it. What else did we see? There were other tense moments, other interesting little bits and pieces here. I wish they would have filmed them breaking up, but maybe they didn't want it to be filmed. Anyway, so who is together from season 2? No one? Yeah, I don't think any of them survived. You had Shane and Natalie, they didn't survive. Nick and Danielle didn't survive, which is sad for me. I was hoping for them. Sal and Mal didn't get married. Jarrett and Ayanna got married but didn't last. Shake and Deepti didn't get married, thank God. I guess we did see that Deepti and Kyle decided that they were going to go out because Deepti was resisting getting involved with him because they were really good friends and she didn't want to ruin the friendship. It also seemed like Kyle was in love with Deepti, and Deepti was like okay about Kyle. At least that's the way it seemed. I don't know. So yeah, no one got married and survived on season 2. It's interesting because season 1, right, G and Nina and Damien, they didn't work out, right? Amber and Barnett worked out. Lauren and Cam are still together. Kenny and what's her name didn't work out. And Jessica and Matt did not work out. Jessica and Barnett did not work out. Diamond and what was his name didn't work out as well. Yeah, so 2 couples, from what I understand, are still together from season 1, and no couples from season 2. That's I don't know, it's interesting. What do I think about that? Well, dating is hard. Finding a compatible partner is hard. Trying to work out your issues without going to therapy is risky. Anyway, well, I thought there'd be more for me to react to, but there really wasn't. It was basically just a lot of well-produced hanging out and little snippets here and there. So now, while I was Googling, I actually just found out that Love is Blind Season 3 is coming out soon, in October. Then I also heard that they were filming Love is Blind in Seattle, so I thought it was that season, but the third season is going to be in Dallas. Season 4, Love is Blind, is going to be in Seattle, so I don't know when that will be released. But I really like it when I see my city in these reality TV shows. From what I can gather, they're on Capitol Hill, which I've spent a lot of time up there. It's a really fun place, so that'll be fun to see on TV. But anyway, so tune in next time when I watch the next season of Love is Blind. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.